I'm going to call the order for, call to order the regular meeting of Council for Monday, January 11th. Looking for approval of the agenda. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Day.
Second.
By Councillor Logan. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Public participation. This is an opportunity for anyone in the public, if they have anything or comments that they would like to say. This is your opportunity. If you do, please, mic is on, but please just say your name and address. And if you don't want to give your address, just go ahead and give it to them privately. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, my name is John Vincer. I live at 3340 Painter Road here in Colwood. I'm here to talk about proposed bylaw 1583, the development at Metchosin and Painter Road. I'm a little surprised that the bylaw got to this stage, the fourth and final reading. After the well-thought-out output and concerns with the level of density proposed at this development, these things were brought up at Planning and Land Use Committee meetings, all the council meetings that talked about this development, a lot of correspondence from concerned citizens and neighbors, meetings with town staff, the public consultation hearing, several letters to the editor of the Goldstream Gazette, and a petition signed by over 200 people directly and permanently affected by this development, proposed development. I say permanently because after the voting is done or whatever, it's off the council's plate and permanently affects all the neighbors that have to live with this density. I would like to say again that the people that signed the petition and that got in touch with the council and town are not proposed to the land being developed. They are concerned with the proposed density and the associated perils such as school children's safety and traffic congestion that come along with this level of density, and not to mention the character of the neighborhood. These people have seen a lot of changes over the last 40 plus years that some of them have lived in this neighborhood, and they are concerned with this. So all this concern from taxpayers versus a money-making venture by the developer, who will be the one and only taxpayer for the 36 rental units that are proposed. To exacerbate the situation, I noticed on reading the proposed bylaw tonight that 1029.2 permitted uses, 1A and number 6, says that secondary suites will still be allowed. This will exacerbate the density, traffic issues, etc., things that I had already mentioned. So I'd just like to say, please vote no to this proposed bylaw and open the door to a lower density development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public would like to comment? I'm going to give a second opportunity and a third opportunity. Okay, thank you. Moving on to Mayor's message. Obviously, I am not the mayor. I'm just helping out tonight. Mayor Hamilton she is away on a much-needed holiday, but she will be back for next council, as well as Councillor Trace is also away, but they both send their regrets that they're not able to be here. A couple quick things. Just welcome to everyone and welcome to 2016. We hope 2016 is a wonderful year for the city of Colwood. Three quick announcements, just so that people are aware. Royal Bay Secondary is having their first show in the new theater, which we're very excited about, which is occurring from January 20th to the 22nd. Tickets are $12.50 and can be purchased at the school. There is the Family Court, thank you, Annual General Meeting, happening at 11:30 a.m. at Victoria City Hall on the same date of January 20th. And then as well, the CRD has a regional trail management meeting happening on January 14th happening at the Juan de Fuca Senior Center, and that is from 4 to 7 p.m. And I believe that that's more just sort of a gathering for information, so if people want to go and gather information. Oh, sorry, that made it sound very dramatic. Anything else for council? Anybody else have anything else that they would like to share? All right, seeing none, I will move on. Looking for adoption of the regular, can I adopt both, or should I adopt each separately? Both, okay. Looking for the adoption of both the regular meeting of December 21st and the public hearing minutes for bylaw number 1597 on December 21st.
Move adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Chong. Any discussion, errors, omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Looking for a motion to receive the Economic Development and Innovation Committee of November 19th, the report of Public Hearing Bylaw number 1597 of December 21st, Cycling Advisory Committee of June 1st, the Special Parks and Recs and Culture Committee of May 15th. Wow. The Parks, Rec, and Cultural Committee meeting of October 19th. Would somebody like to move to receive those?
Move received.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Nault, seconded by?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Chong. Any errors, omissions, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to presentations. We have a presentation from the Senior Director of the Government and Public Affairs, Western Region. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening. My name is TJ Parhar, and I'm the Senior Director of Government and Public Affairs for the Cement Association of Canada. I'm fairly new to the industry. I've been in this position for almost 2 years. I came from the public sector. I was in government for the past 12 years and saw an opportunity to grow and learn a new industry and look at innovative ways to actually addressing climate change. But Oh, okay. How's that? Okay. Well, the reason why I'm here today is because of a vision from our CEO, Michael McSweeney, to introduce the industry and possibly initiate a dialogue regarding the industry's role in the community and economy from a climate change lens, and perhaps a chance to explore at a future time opportunities to collaborate. But let me first start by providing you with an overview of the industry here in BC. Both the cement and concrete industry are local in nature. There are 3 cement plants in BC. Lafarge owns 2, one in Richmond and in Kamloops, and Lehigh Hansen has 1 cement plant in Delta. With respect to the concrete industry, there's an operation in or near every community in British Columbia. 135 ready-mix concrete batch plant facilities with 5 companies located on southern Vancouver Island: Trio Ready Mix, Lafarge, Butler Brothers, Independent Concrete, and Ocean, and along with 17 precast concrete producers in BC. Combined, the industry employs more than 2,000 direct and indirect jobs in BC with over $3 billion of investment. As a local industry, we understand the local issues and are engaged in the communities and understand the big pressures being placed on them by senior governments to look at climate change and how municipalities can play a role. As an industry, we are committed to greenhouse gas reductions and have voluntarily reduced cement manufacturing emissions by over 15% by 1990. Introduced low carbon intensity cement called Contempora or Portland limestone cement, which reduces GHG emissions by 10% compared to general use cement. All batch plants across British Columbia have an eco certification, and the industry is currently transitioning to lower carbon fuels and is working with the provincial government on a transitional program and looking for alternative fuel opportunities with other industries in BC. At this time, we are coping. Oh, sorry. Yeah, at this time, we are coping with an aging and decaying infrastructure. When weather events are becoming the new norm, and when urban densification is becoming a priority, we need to be looking for enhanced resilience for our buildings. This region of Vancouver Island has been a leader, but what can cities do? We believe cities and municipalities should continue to support LEED, energy efficient and more resilient buildings, mandating integrated energy efficiency strategies for these buildings as well as community density strategies, and specifically the use of contemporary Portland limestone cement to lower carbon intensity. BC is already a leader when it comes to the use of Contempra, and our ultimate goal is to see Contempra be the de facto cement across Canada. I'd like to quickly touch on water, as it's at the heart of climate changes, impacts in our communities. Increased frequency and severity of droughts, floods, storm surges, and sea level rises are already being observed, and mitigating these effects is among the most urgent challenges to make our communities more resilient. Public projects will play a big role in meeting these challenges in urbanized areas. Urban developments alter the natural landscape of our communities, creating hardscape surfaces and that prevent infiltration of water into soil surfaces and increasing runoff. Stormwater runoff can send as much as 90% of pollutants such as oil and hydrocarbon liquids found on the surface of traditional parking lots into the rivers and streams. Infiltration solutions like pervious concrete and permeable interlocking concrete paving systems offer a low-impact development solution to restore the natural ability of an urban site to absorb stormwater. They can play important roles in flood mitigation and in urban environments. I'm not a subject matter on these topics, but I'd be happy to arrange a discussion with our staff within the Cement Association who are well versed in this topic, and continue a dialogue and see if there are any other opportunities to collaborate in the future. But in closing, I'd like to thank you for your time and the opportunity to present to you today.
Actually, I'll just, does council have any questions before I have you leave the podium? Doesn't look like it. Looks like we're good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Moving on to 5.1, which is correspondence requiring council direction. And as you see before you, we have a council discussion regarding the email correspondence from the Cement Association of Canada. Council, do you have any opinions? If not, I'll just look for a motion to kind of receive, sort of. It's an inside joke, sorry. Yes, Councillor Day.
Thank you. I was just going to suggest that we forward this to our Transportation and Public Infrastructure Committee for their comment and or consideration.
Great. So will that be an actual motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Great. Oh, great. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you. Moving on to 6.1, Transportation and Public Infrastructure, report from the City Engineer regarding the city objectives for sewer treatment. Councillor Nault, will that be you or?
That will be the engineer.
Okay.
The simple aim of this report is to get in writing council's, the city's objectives in pursuing sewage treatment by whichever means it is pursued. And I think we've been working to a set of objectives informally, but it's good that we get them formally in writing, and we thus ensure that we're all on the same page as we go forward, because critical decisions are coming up. So these are meant to be in strict priority order. Number one is to ensure Colwood sewage is treated at least to the minimum standard required by provincial and federal regulations. should have the word provincial in there, to avoid costly fines, and I don't think that needs any explanation, and the communications manager has kindly put in some measures there. So if we meet the standards and we get no fines, we've met that objective. Number 2 is to be confident of the net cost of sewage treatment to Colwood going forward, and as far as possible to ensure that costs will not negatively impact the attraction or retention of homeowners, home buyers, business owners, or developers to Colwood. And the measures for that are the real estate statistics that we experience, business and development statistics before and after a sewage tax increase, allowing for other factors as well. And that is number 2, obviously cost being extremely important, and especially in that it not drive people away from the community or discourage them from coming. Number 3 is to maximize Colwood's resiliency in the face of a changing climate and economy, and this includes building in the present or future capacity to recover water, energy, or other commodities through the sewage treatment process, and preventing the pollution of Colwood's or adjacent water, land, and air. And the treatment of sewage is meant to reduce pollution. The way, if it's done through secondary treatment, it's a substantial reduction, but you can get bigger reductions. But there's always something left over. You can't make it magically disappear. So there is some kind of pollution somewhere at the end of it all. The measures here are capacity to recover resources or modify the plant for future recovery, and pollution data before and after the plant. And I'm not suggesting here that this is any kind of resolution to collect that data, but other people are collecting that data. And the 4th one is to use the treatment of sewage and the recovery of resources to the greatest extent possible to attract or spark beneficial development and business investment in Colwood. And the measures there being new facilities built in Colwood which used recovered resources or named that option as a reason for choosing Colwood. There are no financial implications to the proposed objectives. From a financial point of view, they do put the financial imperative second only after meeting our legal requirements. The real financial objectives would come through later decisions made in the light of these objectives. There are no legal implications to the objectives, and I'm just asking that council either approve the objectives or some revised objectives, and our recommendation is to approve the objectives as they are. Thank you.
Thank you. I will go to council. Councillor Logan.
I'll start this off. Thank you, Acting Worship. Number 1, it makes sense because we don't have a choice in that respect anyways. And 3 and 4 seem to be, their motherhood and apple pie type of things, good things that we should be doing. Number 2 is probably the one I'm most interested in, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around how we can be confident of the net cost of sewage treatment for Colwood. Because the goalposts seem to be changing from this CRD, and the latest rendition of their plan seems to heavily weight, of course, to the one plant system, which they've been touting all along, having that public perception of you do anything but you're screwing your taxpayer. So I guess how do we hold their feet to the fire and maintain our confidence in what they're trying to sell us?
Well, I would say that a few years ago, the difference between one plant and multi-plants was 783 million to 2.5 billion, and that difference has shrunk considerably. The numbers you're seeing are extremely approximate. They're not even a Class D engineering estimate. They're what they call order of magnitude costs. And given that I think option 1 and option 2 are only about 150 million apart, an order of magnitude cost can't be that. Oh, sorry, 1A and 1B are only about 150 million apart. An order of magnitude estimate won't give you that level of confidence to within 150 million. So there's an awful lot of work to be done before these numbers are something you could feel reasonably confident in. I mean, really, there's an awful lot of work to be done before they can give you a plus or minus bracket within which they think this number falls. So we've got a long way to go before we can really feel, if we ever do in this process, feel that that first part of number 2 has been met. I guess, honestly, the best I would say we could hope for is to be, as confident as, more confident than we are right now, and, get as close as we can to confident.
I guess because we're in a real unique situation because of our the low percentage of people that are actually hooked up to the sewer, and I don't see a lot of reassurance from the CRD that they're taking that into account when we're looking at this sewage costs and specifically capacity and their demands that we reserve a certain amount of capacity in the system for future growth. So
well,
I guess I'm just concerned about the homeowners and potential buyers and business owners and alike. So we don't turn into an area that people shy away from because of what the CRD is putting on us.
Quite a while ago, we wrestled with this problem of the fact that at that time, only 25% of the city, in fact, I think it was less than 25% then, was connected. That number's closing on 30% now as development occurs. And a certain number of people join the system. And we drastically reduced our capacity request. It was something at 7.7, I think, that CRD had us down for a number of years, and we reduced that to 4 point. The number eludes me, but I think it winds up at 4.7% of the total, 4.4 megaliters per day. And I recently came and recommended to council that we increase that, and that decision was put on hold, and that, I think in retrospect, was a very wise decision. There's a lot of people looking right now at what our true increase in sewage output is across the region, and in areas of low growth it's actually dropping significantly, and urban systems in Tech 3, I think it was, did recommend that be looked at. I'm not certain whether any work's currently going on that at the CRD offices, but it certainly is here. I'm working on that right now. We may be able to get by with that 4.4. We may even be able to reduce it. But I'm going to do some calculations and get the best numbers I can and come back to you with that.
Thank you. And just a final question. I haven't really thought this through totally, and this might not be a totally fair question, but one of the complaints is that people having to pay for capacity that have no hope of hooking up to the sewer. So do you think that this may be a push to perhaps expand the sewer system, whether through city initiative or partnering with a third party, to expand the system, to allow people who are paying for the capacity to reap the benefits, and thus perhaps spreading the costs of sewage treatment over a wider swath of properties.
Yeah, we're going to do some of that anyway, because under the agreement that sorted out the sewer system's financial issues, we are proceeding with a counter petition along Metchosin Road and part of Souk Road to build a sewer that may or may not add people to the system. But by building that sewer, it'll certainly give more people the opportunity. I know that the Stornoway area is begging for sewers because of the problems with tile fields there. There's a lot of clay, and we'll be bringing that to you next after this current one. But the sewer master plan estimated $50 million to sewer the rest of the community, and the deal that Langford got with Correx, which is I actually negotiated, that was pre-2008, and a lot of things changed then. You know, money's not as easy to come by, and also Corus's experience there has not been as good as they hoped it would be, with more people joining the system, and that's where the revenue comes from for them. So I know we wouldn't get that deal if we were to start doing it, but certainly I think it's something, I agree with you, that we've got to look at. But at the same time, I also think we need to look at the fact that being behind everybody else and getting people in sewer might actually put us ahead. When you think about it, what we're planning to do is, if we do our own treatment plan, and maybe even if CRD does one here, is treat the sewage and then put it in the ground. Well, every home is doing that, and except in cases where there's really bad ground conditions, that doesn't seem to be a problem. The tile fields are lasting decades, even decades longer than they're supposed to last, through most of Colwood, because of the very gravel that gives us the ability to put it back into the ground. So we need to think about the fact that we might save $50 million if we don't go that way. And there was a gentleman stood at the lectern and suggested that in order to even the playing field, that the city should look after individual tile fields the same way they look after sewage treatment for everybody else, and that's another thing that's got to be thought about. So
I don't disagree.
yeah, there'll be lots of options we'll be bringing to you in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just, I'll come to you in 2 seconds, Cynthia, or Councillor Day. Just for clarification for council, so these are basically objectives. So we're not making specific decisions or directions on where we're going. These are just sort of the principles to give sort of a leadership understanding, so that staff, when they're trying to figure things out, they're working off of those principles. So just keeping that in mind during our discussion. Councillor Day?
Thank you. I think that the goals are good ones and ones that kind of coalesce around the direction that we have been going already for a number of years, ensuring that we're avoiding any potential fines and trying to keep costs as low as possible for the residents of Colwood. Just because I can't resist in the face of having had to recently represent us at the Liquid Waste Management Committee, and I will be there again this Wednesday. The cost estimates that are being used are extremely rough, extremely to the point of, I think, nearly ridiculous. There are 95% contingency costs associated with the numbers that we're looking at the CRD, and I will be trying to get any costs that we're looking at, any cost allocation to be considered much later in the process rather than right away, so that any costs that we're looking at, we'll look at when we actually have a cost to allocate and not before there's any idea what option we're using or what the potential costs really are. The numbers are so rough, as the engineer mentioned, that it's very difficult to tell which one would be the front runner at this point in time, because we just don't have it that finely articulated at this point in time. So we have some excellent people working on the file, and I think these are great goals to have as we go forward looking for the best possible solution for Colwood.
Councillor Knoll?
Yes, I generally agree with the goals. As stated, I would kind of like to see a little more emphasis on number 3, the maximizing the resiliency and how much we're treating. But for the time being, we're being asked to buy somewhere between 4 and 7% of somewhere between $1 and $1.3 billion. I would sure like to know what we're buying for the citizens of Colwood. Right now, as Councillor Day quite nicely put, the numbers are fairy tales, and how they're going to be divided amongst the communities are fairy tales, and how much each individual in Colwood has to pay is another fairy tale. So I would really urge the CRD to get their act together and get us some hard numbers and some hard designs, so we know where we're actually going, rather than just keep floating this $1 to $1.3 billion in the air. Other thing I would like to see is, since the federal government is legislating us into doing this, and the province is going along with them, I'd like to see them pay for it. Because in my personal opinion, and the opinion of most of the scientists I know, this is a completely unnecessary project for Victoria. So we're wasting $1.1 to $1.3 billion to treat sewage that science tells us does not have to be treated. Thank you.
The only, before I ask for a motion, the only other thing, it would be number 4 for me, would be to use the treatment of sewage and the recovery resources to the greatest extent possible. I wouldn't mind adding in a line there without extraordinarily additional costs. I'm not interested in resource recovery if it costs us an extra $500 million or something along those lines. So I guess I'm just saying, that I understand that there's additional costs to recovering it, and then you can recover it by hopefully charging it out. But I also do not want, I'm not looking for the Rolls Royce of treatment systems just to recover, that it needs to be cost efficient as well. So but that is just myself, so I wouldn't mind if the rest of council isn't concerned about that, then it doesn't need to be put in, or whoever makes the motion. Councillor Day?
So I'd be prepared to move that we approve the objectives as presented, and if there's a seconder for that motion, I just would make a little explanation.
Second.
Okay.
So just by way of explanation, I hear your concern in terms of the cost for other recovery systems, but that is the third objective, not the first objective. So the second objective speaks to being confident of the net cost. A net cost, of course, would be less any recoverables that we could gain through either the treatment of sewage, or even potentially not having to have an outfall, and perhaps even not having to participate in the CRD's plan, and therefore have them allocate all the grants to their portion of the pipe instead of ours. So I think that we have the hierarchy correct, in that we're keeping costs low first and foremost, and then recovering as much as we possibly can as well.
Okay, just as a discussion point, if council would endure me. I guess, Councillor Day, I didn't see these as rankings from 1 to 4. These are just 4 recommendations of 4 principles that we're working towards, that one doesn't overrank the next one. So that's my concern with that. If these are all equal.
No, they're in order of priority.
All right. Is it? Where does it say that? Under 2. I'm just looking, because it doesn't say that. We need to clarify that under the recommendation, that they're priority.
In order of priority
Yeah.
as follows. First priority,
That council approve as presented in the, we're under the recommendation?
under number 2, overview.
No, I understand it's an overview, but they're not going to see the overview. They're going to see the recommendation. The recommendation does not state
Oh, I
that
see.
Yeah.
that it's in priority.
Okay.
So if we can add that, then I'm comfortable with it.
Yes, let's add,
Okay. Then I'm good. So, sorry, we have a mover and seconder. Any other discussion? Do we need to, we don't need to do an amendment, do we, to that? That it is in order? Okay. Then I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you. Moving on. Bylaws. Bylaw 1583, final reading, Colwood Land Use, Bylaw 151, 1989, amendment number 145.
Move final.
Second.
Discussion, and I have clarified this with staff. There is discussion on final reading. Any discussion? Councillor Nault? Oh, sorry, just as clarification, there can be discussion, but there cannot be any new information.
Thank you. I will continue to oppose this. I think it's the wrong development for that location. The residents have been very clear that they don't want that density. I think it's a shame that it has gone this far without any major modifications, so I will be voting against.
Councillor Dick?
Thank you. And I will also be opposing the bylaw for the same reasons I have all along. I have concerns about the number of driveways on Painter. And in reading the bylaw, there are secondary suites allowed. There doesn't appear to be any limitation on those. And could I just ask for clarification if that was the intention?
To the acting mayor, council may recall this came up through the consideration at the earlier stage of this amending bylaw that the regional context statement included in our fish community plan dictates that secondary suites be permitted throughout the community. That meant that we were not able to restrict secondary suites through the amending bylaw, but actually it's restricted through the Section 219 covenant that was registered as a condition of the zone, and that was undertaken by the developer and executed by the city prior to tonight.
Great. Any other discussion? I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It carries. 7.2, bylaw number 1593, memorandum final reading, Colwood Land Use 151, 1989, text amendment number 147.
On a point of order, I have a potential conflict of interest on the remaining items on the agenda, as my wife has a contract with the developer for landscaping, so I will be excusing myself from discussion.
May I have a mover?
Do you want that
Oh.
memo?
I'm sorry, memo.
Thank you,
I
Worship.
just said it.
Item 7.2 in tonight's agenda includes a memo outlining emissions in the bylaw number 1593 concerning a resolution from council to collect amenity fees for hotel units planned as part of the future phases of the Pacific Landing Comprehensive Development, also known as the CD15 zone, located near Esquimalt Lagoon. This resolution was not reflected in the version of bylaw number 1593 that previously received third reading. However, and I'd just like to apologize for that error. Instead of correcting the error by amending the bylaw prior to final reading tonight, staff are proposing that council direct staff to prepare an additional corrective amendment to be adopted after fourth reading. After fourth reading is given to bylaw number 1593 as presented tonight. This approach would avoid the significant delays an in-stream corrective amendment and associated second public hearing would entail. It would also ensure that the city can enforce the required amenity contributions for hotel units, which are not planned to be built for some time. Therefore, before consideration of fourth reading of the bylaw is undertaken, staff would recommend that the following resolution be made. That staff be instructed to prepare a bylaw to add to section 10.20.3-1 of the land use bylaw, density bonusing provisions addressing hotel development in the CD15 zone, including requirements for contribution per hotel unit for the Community Amenity Reserve Fund and contributions for other amenities described in section 10.20.3-1 at the rate of 50% of the requirements applicable to dwelling units. Thank you.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Sorry, jumping back. So now I go to B now, correct? So now it's bylaw number 1593, consideration of final reading.
Move final.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. There is no in camera. Nothing to release in camera. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.